dear friends, we have our first lecture on constitutional and administrative law of England and Wales. And today we are going to cover UK Constitution, the rule of law and separation of power as a part of the UK Constitution, judicial review and public order. On the next lecture, we will cover Brexit-related issues, retain EU law, human rights and Human Rights Act and the European Convention of Human Rights and some other issues related to that. And here with me today is Oliver Gray. Hello, Ollie.
Hi, Olga. Thank you for having me again.
Thank you for joining us today for those fascinating topics related to the Constitution and administrative law of England and Wales, which is a difficult one. Honestly, I've struggled a little bit to put things together, especially as to the Constitution itself. But let's start from, let's start from a small warning. I'm currently in Ukraine, just in case if there's any alarm. Don't worry, my friends, we will adjourn the meeting. We will reconvert it in when the alarm is finished. It can happen any moment. It's actually some way symbolic that we are talking. I'm streaming from here, from Ukraine, and we are talking about Constitution. And I think it's very important consideration in the light of what is going on as well on this planet and in Ukraine, this war and all the UK positive impact. So let's really consider that in details. And as an icebreaker, let's start from very general consideration. Oliver, what is the best way to understand the UK's constitution, in your opinion?
I think the first thing is to just accept that it's not neat. It's not like, for example, the US Constitution is in a series of places in writing, it's quite accessible. A lot of countries have a written constitution. The UK Constitution, as I think is probably well reflected in the general idea of a common law jurisdiction, actually, we have it in lots of pieces in a lot of different places. So we'll have a look in a minute at some of the places that we can find bits of our Constitution, but it is effectively unwritten, it's scattered, it's something that we have to piece together. Again, we'll have a look at what Lord Bingham had said in 2010, 2011 in his book. He'd actually made a list, I think, of some constitutional pieces of legislation we have, but unfortunately it's not in one place. So in order to understand it, I think that's the first thing to just accept, is that it is very messy, unfortunately.
Very messy, but still there's a persuasive role of the rule of law, isn't it? Eventually, it is basically the court which decides on the interpretation of the law, even if the law is done by the parliament, which is a very interesting consideration. So the judiciary play a very important role in this jurisdiction. Many years ago, I made a small research about the differences between civil law and common law jurisdictions, and there's a lot of works and researches made about that. And actually, they come to the conclusion that, to some extent, common law jurisdictions have small advantage above civil law, in the sense also of providing for their economic development, the rule of law in the country as well, anti-corruption laws and things related to that. So great.